Can I ask everyone to get a seat, please, so we can get started? Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the first of our budget hearings for this year. We started out with the best. No guarantees that the budget is fulfilled, but we invited all of you to be here today. We'd like to start today. This is a higher education overview, and our budget analyst is Kelly Norton. And the agency representatives that are here is Secretary Sanjay Rai, Dr. Jay Perman, Dr. David Wilson, Dr. Tijuana Jordan, Dr. Brad Phillips, and Matt Power. We're going to start first with the budget analyst.
Thank you. We're going to begin on page 2, which looks at state funding changes for higher education. The public four-year institutions funding increases by 3.9% or $89.5 million from fiscal 24 to 25. Other higher education decreases by 7.3% or $65.9 million. This results in a total increase of 0.7% or $23.6 million for total higher education as shown in the bottom row. A more detailed summary of these budget changes will be discussed in their respective agency and institutional budget analyses. On page 5, we look at the Cade and Selinger formula. The funding has historically been based on the full-time equivalent students, or FTS, as self-reported by the select four-year institutions. But this year, DBM has used the MHEC provided numbers, which are often higher. This year, 5.5% higher, resulting in lower funding per FTE. This can be seen in Exhibit 1 on page 5. Turning to page 7, Exhibit 2 shows state support for the public four-year institutions. When excluding agricultural research and extension funding at Eastern Shore and College Park, total funding increases $89.4 million. University of Maryland Eastern Shore receives the largest percentage increase of 12.4%, or an increase of $8.4 million. This is followed by Towson University with a 9.2% increase and Morgan State University with a 5.5% increase. Exhibit 3 on page 8 shows changes in state and local funding per FTEs from fiscal 2012 compared to fiscal 2022. Nationally, state and local spending per FTEs increased 48%. Maryland's increase of 49% falls below 5 competitor states: Washington, California, Massachusetts, Virginia, and Minnesota. Turning to Maryland state's funding by segments, as seen in Exhibit 4 on page 9, the exhibit shows funding per FTEs at the Maryland two-year institutions. From 2019 to 2022, state funding increased by 31.1% and local funding by 23.1%. This increase in state and local fundings per FTEs is mostly due to declining enrollment at the Maryland's two-year public institutions. Exhibit 5 on page 10 shows state support and net tuition revenues per FTEs for the Maryland public four-year institutions. From 2019 to 2022, state support increased by 4.6%, while net tuition decreased 6.8%. Turning to Exhibit 6 on page 11, this exhibit compares the 5-year percentage change in tuition and fees at Maryland's public institutions with our competitor states after adjusting for inflation. In terms of the two-year institutions, the rate declined in 47 states nationally. There was a decrease of 9.7%. Except for California and North Carolina, the tuition rate in Maryland and the other competitor states exceed the national average by of $4,330. Overall, for academic year 2023 through 2024, the average tuition rate for Maryland was $4,953, making Maryland the 23rd most expensive state in the country. Tuition and fees at Maryland's public four-year institutions decreased by 10.1%, higher than the national average decrease of 9.7%. At an average of $10,852 for the 2023 to 2024 academic year, Maryland had the 26th most expensive rate in the country. Exhibit 7 on page 13 shows total undergraduate enrollment changes by segment. Nationally, the undergraduate enrollment increased by 2.1% in fall 2023. Similarly, Maryland's total undergraduate enrollment increased by 4.1%. Enrollment increased across all segments as shown in Exhibit 7, with the exception of independent four-year universities experiencing a decrease at 0.6%. Community college enrollment grew by 8.3%, and the public 4 years enrollment increased by 2%. It should be noted that the fall 2023 enrollment numbers reflect opening fall enrollment data and are subject to revision. Sarah Baker will now provide an update on the progress towards 55% degree attainment.
Okay, Exhibit 8 on page 14 shows Maryland's progress to the 55% completion goal, in which at least 55% of adults will hold at least one degree credential by 2025. When including short-term credentials, 57.3% of Marylanders hold at least one credential. However, when excluding those credentials, only 51.2% have a credential. So MHEC developed a model that sets the degree targets that institutions need to reach in order for the state to reach its completion goal. MHEC projects Maryland would need over 845,000 additional degree holders by 2025, with Maryland institutions accounting for over 600,000 of those additional degree holders. The Exhibit 9 on page 15 shows each segment's target and actual degrees that are conferred. The public 4-year institutions consistently exceed their targets, and so did the community colleges till 2023, when they fell short of their target by 898 degrees. MHEC projects the state will fall short of its goal, projecting a degree attainment rate of 52.2% by 2025. Turning to immediate college enrollment on page 16, as you can see in Exhibit 10 nationally, the class of 21 had the lowest intermediate college enrollment rates, which improved across all categories with the class of 22. And those from low income, high minority, high poverty schools experienced the greatest increase in the college going rate. However, I do note that the college going rate is still below the pre-pandemic levels. And looking at Maryland, and Exhibit 11 on page 7 shows that the percentages of high school graduates not enrolling in college increased to 53% with the class of 2020, reflecting the impact of COVID had on the students' decision to enroll in college. While the percentage enrolling in college has since increased, it is still below the pre-pandemic level. So we asked the Chancellor and the presidents of Morgan, St. Mary's, and MICUA, and the Secretary to comment on efforts to increase the participation of recent high school graduates in post-secondary education. So as more Maryland high school graduates become more diverse, those going to college will likely come from low-income first-generation families. Therefore, institutions will need to provide pathways, programs, and services to help these students succeed. In order to see how well these institutions are serving these students, Pell Grants are used as a proxy measure for their success. So Exhibit 12 on page 19 shows the 6-year graduation rate of Pell in non-first-time, full-time, and transfer students at the public 4-year institutions. Overall, the rates for first-time, full-time students vary amongst the institutions, and institutions tend to do well with the transfer students, for they have demonstrated persistence and have completed remedial work. However, this does not say much about how well institutions are serving its low-income students. For instance, College Park has the highest graduation rates of first-time, full-time Pell students at 81%, but they only comprise 18% of the student population. And Wyckoppin has the highest percentage of Pell students, it has the lowest graduation rate. So one way to measure how well institutions are serving its low-income students is by measuring their return on investment, which is the amount of time it takes for a student to recoup their out-of-pocket expenses not covered by financial aid. The Economic Mobility Index provides a way to measure the return on investment. Now, previous models did not factor in the percentage of Pell students enrolled in an institution. So this resulted in more selective institutions being highly ranked, but they enroll fewer low-income students who tend to be high performers. The third weight index takes into account the percentage of Pell students enrolled in the institution, and this has resulted in elevating less selective institutions that are more affordable and have financial systems in place to help low-income first-generation students. So Exhibit 13 on page 21 shows Maryland's 4-year institutions by peer, and at 28.9%, Towson has the highest EMI of Maryland's 4-year public institution, with its taking its graduates less than a year to pay off their out-of-pocket expenses. We asked the chancellors and the presidents of Morgan, St. Mary's, and MICUA to comment on efforts to increase enrollment of low-income students and efforts to ensure their success. And I'll turn it back to Kelly.
We will now look at the transfer of college credits. Exhibit 14 on page 23 provides the transfer out rate for Maryland's community colleges for the fall 2014 cohort. The transfer out rate is a percentage of community college students who transfer to a four-year institution. According to the U.S. Department of Education, Maryland's median transfer out rate is 31.5% and the third highest in the nation. Montgomery College has the highest transfer out rate at 43.4%. Exhibit 15 on page 24 provides the highest completion rates for community college transfer students at Maryland's four-year institutions. The state median completion rate is 66%, with University of Maryland College Park with the highest completion rate for community transfer students at 75.5%. There are many reasons that individuals are unsuccessful at attaining a bachelor's degree when beginning at a community college. For instance, when attempting to transfer community college credits, it is generally at the discretion of the receiving institution to determine whether course credits will be counted towards graduation, and as importantly, a student's major. DLS asks MHEC, USM, MSU, St. Mary's, MICUA, and MAC to comment on what steps are being taken to assist the transfer student population, specifically identifying actions that have been taken to facilitate the student transfer process for these students and ensure their academic success. Moving to the issue section, which begins on page 26, the first issue involves college direct admissions. Direct admissions is a timely topic as the state focuses on ensuring that students are college ready. Broadening accessibility to college is important. Direct admissions is being implemented across the nation as a way to reach students who might have not thought about college. Direct admission differs from the traditional admission process. With direct admissions, universities use available information such as GPA, grades, high school courses taken, and standardized test scores to offer students direct admissions. Students who have yet to apply formally receive official acceptance letters to schools, and to claim the spots, the students fill out a simplified form instead of a full application. Direct admissions has been implemented in 8 states. Some are state government-led initiatives, such as Idaho, the first state to introduce direct admissions, or it can be implemented by university systems, such as the University System of Georgia. Direct admissions can be mistaken for guaranteed admissions. For example, Senate Bill 5 of the current session has been introduced to establish a guaranteed admission system in Maryland. This bill, if enacted, would guarantee admission to all students in the top 10% of their class to Maryland's public universities. However, with guaranteed admission, the onus is on students to apply for admission to a school with the knowledge that they will be accepted based on that threshold. Direct admission admits the students before the application. Universities can partner with private entities to participate in direct admissions. University of Maryland Eastern Shore and Towson University are partnering with Common App to provide direct admissions to first-generation college students or students with low to moderate income if they meet certain academic standards. Eastern Shore has offered direct admissions to 150 students in the fall 2023 and 6 enrolled. Towson University is also partnering with the College Board for a direct admissions pilot program. While direct admissions has the potential to broaden who attends college, it has limitations. A study on the Common App program shows that students who receive offers of direct admission are more likely to apply to schools than those who do not. The direct admission offer, coupled with the application fee waiver, is a low-touch intervention that guides students into a college pathway. However, this strategy is less effective on enrollment than guaranteeing financial aid conditional on admission. Without financial aid, students who might not have considered school before a direct admissions offer may still decide it's out of reach due to costs. DLS asked the Chancellor and Presidents of Morgan, St. Mary's, MICUA, and MAC to comment on what role they foresee for direct admissions at their institutions. And the second issue begins on page 27. It will be presented by Sarah Baker.
Okay, the second issue is on FAFSA simplification, which begins at the bottom, page 27. The goal of the FAFSA Simplification Act is to expand access to post-secondary education by simplifying the financial aid process. It addresses several concerns with the process that are listed on the bottom of the page and on the next, including it being too complicated and not very transparent. The launch of the new FAFSA was supposed to have occurred in December. However, it was delayed to the end of last October, and it was delayed to the end of December. I just want to note that MHEC has extended their deadlines for students to submit their FAFSA to June 1st, but they are encouraging students to submit by the priority deadline of March 1st. A major change is replacing the expected family contribution with a student aid index, which will more adequately reflect the amount of financial aid a student is eligible to receive. Where the formula for calculating the aid is mostly the same, there are a few major differences which are listed towards the bottom of page 28. One of the major changes is excluding the number of family members in college from the calculation. So eligible low-income students will be able to qualify for maximum Pell Grants and other need-based aid just based on their adjusted gross income. And the impacts on the families is listed on the top of page 29, and why those that are from low-income families will benefit the most. Those who have more than one child in college may lose aid. In terms of determining Pell Grant eligibility, that will be based on federal poverty level and family size. Significant changes to the Pell are listed on the bottom of the page. So overall, the U.S. Department of Education estimates that in Maryland, the number of Pell recipients could increase by over 7,400 and an additional 20,310 students could receive the maximum Pell award. As shown on page 30, based on a sample data from MGCAPS, 291 students could lose their Pell eligibility in Maryland, and over 1,100 students could become eligible. So MHEC estimates the combined impact of more students and students qualifying for larger grants could result in projected $120 million to $150 million increase for the GA program, and educational assistant could increase by $120 million. I just want to note the allowance only increases funding for these programs by $2.2 million. There will also be an impact on institutions deciding if they will make those students whole who have lost their Pell Grants. In addition, institutions will not receive any student data from the completed FAFSA application to the end of this month, which could result in a delay in students receiving their financial aid offer letters. So we asked the chancellor, the presidents of Morgan, St. Mary's, MICUA, and MAC to comment on the potential impact the simplified FAFSA will have on institutions, including on the financial aid offices, students, costs, and the delay of receiving student data. And we asked the secretary to comment on the potential impact this will have on the state's financial assistance programs. And I'll turn it over to Kelly for the next issue.
The next issue begins on page 31 and concerns changes to the Carnegie classifications of institutions of higher education. On November 1st, the Carnegie Foundation for the Advancement of Teaching, also known as Carnegie, and the American Council of Education, or ACE, announced that the Carnegie classifications of institutions of higher education will change for the upcoming 2025 classification cycle. All higher education institutions are categorized under the current basic classification determined by the highest degree awarded at the individual schools. Exhibit 16 on page 31 shows the current classification system. Carnegie and ACE have collaborated to redefine the basic classifications to make them a more accurate and comprehensive description of the individual schools. Carnegie hopes the new classifications will be a more accurate description of institutions as opposed to the current system where dissimilar schools are grouped together based on the highest degree offered. The new basic classification is not finalized, and the organization is taking public comment until February 15th of this year. Exhibit 17 on page 32 shows the example of a potential classification for a four-year university, and Exhibit 18 on page 33 shows an example of a potential classification for a two-year college. The most notable change to the basic classification system is the removal of research classification for doctoral universities. Research will now be a category separate from the basic classification. There will no longer be a complex methodology to determine which universities are classified as R1 or very high research activity or R2 high research activity. Currently, a complicated formula ranks all potential research universities based on their doctorate academic program inventory, types of research and development expenditures, science and engineering research staff, and a per capita analysis. Once the universities are ranked, the top half of the institutions are placed in R1 and the bottom half is placed in R2. This methodology for determining R1 and R2 universities incentivize universities to establish programs in fields that they lack to become eligible for R1 or R2 classification. This method will be replaced with a simple threshold. Any institution that spends at least $50 million in research and development and confers at least 70 Scholarship doctorates in a year will be designated R1 or very high research spending and doctorate production. R2 or high research spending and doctorate production will be designated to institutions that spend at least $5 million in research and development and award at least 20 research scholarship doctorates in a year. The research and development amount is based on the information reported to the National Science Foundation Higher Education Research and Development Survey or HERD survey, and the doctorate account is based on the information reported to the Integrated Post-Secondary Education Data System, IPEDS. A third category, research, has been added. This classification will recognize the research at any school that has spent at least $2.5 million in research and development in a year. The 2025 classifications will be based on the higher of either a 3-year average covering the 2021 through 2023 period or the most recent single year 2023. In the future, it will only be based on the 3-year average. Exhibit 19 on page 34 shows the impact the new research classification could have on Maryland's public four-year universities based on the most recent HERD survey and IPEDS information. Bowie State University, Salisbury University, Towson University, and University of Baltimore all have the potential to be classified as research schools. And Bowie State University and Towson University could possibly become R2 universities. Carnegie is adding a social and economic mobility classification in 2025 as well, with the hopes that it will incentivize schools to focus resources on that goal in the same way they pursued R1 and R2 status. The next issue begins on page 35 and covers the HBCU settlement funds. Exhibit 20 on page 30 shows the fiscal 2023 expenditures of the first distributions of the HBCU settlement funds. Each university fully expended its 2023 funding, while Morgan State University actually exceeded its funds. The exhibit shows how the different universities approached the funding. And for fiscal 2024, Bowie State University received $18.2 million. Exhibit 21 on page 36 shows Bowie State University's fiscal 2024 plan. The university plans to expend $7 million on enhancing academic support, $3.9 million on new academic programs, and $7.3 million on enhancing and expanding existing programs. Coppin State University received $9 million and plans to use the funds in 5 divisions: the academic affairs, enrollment management and student affairs, institutional investment/marketing, information technology, and the president's office. At the time of the analysis, the university didn't have a plan of allocation for the funds for how they're going to go to, how they would be distributed exactly to each division. Morgan State University received $26.4 million. Morgan has earmarked $15.1 million of its funding to continue funding fiscal 2023 priorities into fiscal 2024. Of the additional $11.3 million received in fiscal 2024, $4.7 million will go towards assistantships and scholarships, $2 million for enrollment management and student success and staffing, $1.9 million for general financial aid, $1 million in licenses and software, and the remainder is for the nursing accreditation, enhancing animal facilities, undergraduate research support, and enhancing English 101/102. University of Maryland Eastern Shore received $9 million in settlement funds. UMES expects to expend $2.3 million in scholarships, $3.7 million on new existing academic programs, $1.5 million on marketing, $1 million on student success initiatives, and the remainder for faculty and staff professional development. The next issue starts on page 39 and covers the 2023 legislative additions to the public four-year institutions. Exhibit 2022 shows the programs funded in the 2023 session. There was a total of $8.6 million added in section 19 of the fiscal 2024 budget bill, with $8.5 million of that going towards 7 USM institutions. Some legislative additions serve singular purposes, such as those awarded to St. Mary's College for the redevelopment of a state park, University of Maryland Eastern Shore for the state match of a federal grant, and University of Maryland Global Campus for its Maryland Completion Scholarship Program. University of Maryland Baltimore used its $2 million on a rural medical residency program and providing oral care to underserved, uninsured children. University of Baltimore received $1.8 million and used it to support the work of the Schaefer Center and hiring at the Center for International and Comparative Law. Bowie State University received $750,000 and hired needed personnel for its Center of Justice, Law, and Civic Engagement and supported student mental health services. University of Maryland College Park received $750,000 as well and used to provide grant funds to Move America, Inc. to perform work for Prince George's County and supported the university's partnership for action, learning, and sustainability in the College of Architecture. Towson University expended $142,000 of the $750,000 received for its College of Health and Professions and transferred the remainder to a restricted purpose account. And the additional $2,100 received was used to support the Dr. Nancy Gransmith Leadership Institute. The final issue begins on page 40 and was presented by Sarah Baker.
The final issue is on page 40 is some college no credential. It is shown in exhibit 23 on page 41. The number of those with some college no credential grew to 40.4 million in 21, which was primarily related to 2.3 million students that recently stopped out and who were last enrolled in 2019 and had not re-enrolled in an institution since 21. Exhibit 24 on page 42 shows that Maryland's population of those with some college increased 3.7% to over 636,000. Nationally, it is estimated that about 40.4 million of those with some college, about 2.9 million are potential completers. These are students with at least 2 years worth of academic progress and those who have recently stopped out. As shown on exhibit 25 on page 43, 14% of Marylanders with some college were identified as potential completers. As shown on exhibit 26 on page 44, a greater proportion of potential completers were enrolled in a public four-year institution compared to the non-potential completers. On page 45, exhibit 27 shows that 42.5% of potential completers in Maryland last attended a four-year public institution compared to 24.2% of those with the total some college population. As shown on exhibit 28 on page 46, potential completers and recent stopouts re-enroll at higher rates than others with some college, and a majority return to the same institutions. And those students are more likely to earn a credential. Therefore, the state institutions should focus efforts on re-engaging these students, which not only improve attainment rates, but grow enrollment at the universities. On page 47 is a summary of MHEC's near completer programs. The One Step Away program provides grants of up to $60,000 to institutions who have to provide at least 1/3 in-kind match. It supports efforts to identify, re-enroll, and graduate near completers, which are defined on the middle of the page. And since 2013, 17 institutions have received multiple grants, which are listed on this page and the next. So overall, almost 18,000 near completers were identified. Over 14,200 were successfully contacted. Over 1,200 students re-enroll, and that resulted in 935 degrees being conferred. In addition, there is the near completer grant program. And in 21 and 22, a total of 95 awards were made to near completers, of which 91 of them re-enrolled at a USM institution. We asked the chancellors and the president of St. Mary's, Morgan, MICUA, and MAC to comment on programs or initiatives to re-enroll and ensure the successful outcomes of those with some college and no degree. And I'll turn it back over to Kelly for recommendations.
DLS has one operating budget recommended action found on page 49. DLS is requesting the annual report on instructional faculty workload for the public four-year institutions. And thank you for your time, and that concludes our presentation.
Thank you. Good job. There's a lot of information in a little bit of time there. Thank you. Okay, can we have Secretary Rye come up to the table, Dr. Perman, Dr. Wilson, Dr. Jordan, Dr. Phillips, and Matt Power. Dr. Rye, do you want to go first?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Senator King and committee members. I am Acting Secretary, Dr. Sanjay Rai. Chair King, I want to thank you first for your leadership on the academic program approval process work group We look forward to next steps and implementing those recommendations in expeditious manner. I also want to thank Sarah Baker, Kelly Norton, and DLS for the very thorough analysis that we just heard. I know this is the first of many budget hearings to come, so I will keep my comments broad and inclusive of all post-secondary stakeholders and hold my MHEC-specific comments to the MHEC budget hearing. I appreciate the administration's commitment to higher education. The Moore-Miller administration continues to reaffirm their commitment to leaving no one behind. The higher education budget is based on educational equity and expanding student excellence in Maryland. As you may be aware, Maryland is home to 16 outstanding community colleges, 14 public four-year institutions, 22 private institutions, and 140 private career schools. Maryland is home to 8 regional higher education centers, bringing educational programs to Maryland residents. Maryland serves over 327,000 credit-seeking students, not including more than 150,000 students that engage in non-credit academic and workforce development programs, or students enrolled at a private career school. We are pleased that FY 2025 budget provides funding for the various segments of higher education to continue the good work they do to serve our Maryland students and contribute to Maryland's thriving economy. I would like to highlight a few key points from the operating budget, which provides over $2.7 billion to support Maryland colleges and universities, building a robust fabric of higher education throughout our state. It provides $4.8 million to the University of Maryland Eastern Shore to double the state federal match for Maryland's only 1890 HBCU land grant institution, prioritizing its research and development efforts, especially in the field of veterinary medicine. It provides $25 million administered by MHEC for the initiatives at Maryland campuses to increase public safety, which enhances safe environments conducive to learning. There are several notable projects in the capital budget that includes $348 million for 35 projects for higher education. I would like to identify a few projects. Morgan State University's $23 million new science center to house the biology and chemistry departments and the Dean's Office of the School of Computer, Mathematical, and Natural Sciences. University of Maryland College Park's $64.9 million interdisciplinary engineering building for construction and equipment for the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering, which will include the Center for Advanced Transportation Technology and the collaborative learning spaces for identity-based student organizations, such as Society for Hispanic Professional Engineers, Society for Women Engineers, and Black Engineers Society. Baltimore City Community College's $1.3 million nursing building renovation and addition to strengthen the nursing programs in the Baltimore region. Prince George's Community College's $174 million college Marlborough Hall renovation and addition to create new spaces for instruction and academic support, including classrooms, labs, offices, tutoring spaces, study hall, department libraries, workrooms, and meeting rooms. Johns Hopkins University's $20 million for data science and computing infrastructure in acquisition, planning, construction, and equipment funds. In closing, MHEC fully supports the governor's budget and is focused on expanding educational opportunities and improving financial aid delivery to students and families in need. These investments in higher education will continue leveraging a strong rebounding economy from the COVID-19 pandemic. I believe we will achieve goals with demonstrable results to meet Maryland's post-secondary education needs. The investment made in the higher education budget will translate into real workforce and economic growth for the state of Maryland as we seek to close the gaps that exist with respect to educational equity. With that, I turn to our formal response regarding the participation of recent high school graduates in post-secondary education and transfer. You have our written responses to those requests, and I am happy to answer questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Any members have any questions? Okay, Dr. Perman, you're next.
Thank you, Chair King. Thank you, Senators. How it's impacted, or who are we?
You could ask a question now if you'd like.
Okay, thank you.
No. Did you want to ask it now?
Yes, that would be wonderful. You know, the most unfortunate thing is the loss of the Pell Grant for a lot of our students. How are you all coping with that as it pertains to the students? Have you seen a decline? How has it impacted the students on your campus? Has it served that? Has it been an impact?
So, Senator, I want to make sure, I'm David Wilson, President, Morgan State University. Thank you very much for the question. I want to make sure that I am understanding the question. Are you saying that the Pell Grant, the federal Pell Grant program has been eliminated? Is that what you're asking us? Because if that's the case, it has not been. We can talk about, there's been an increase in the Pell, and we, of course, have followed that and have been a strong advocate on the Hill for it. And we have all the data to show the impact that the increase in the Pell is having on retention and graduation rates at Morgan.
So with the Pell Grant, so I'm misunderstanding something here. What's the status of the Pell Grant?
So are you talking about the FAFSA?
Yes.
Okay, we are going to respond to that. We can respond now or later, Madam Chair.
Why don't you wait until you have it in your
Okay.
remarks?
All right, thank you. Sorry for misunderstanding.
Okay, Senator, you okay
Yes,
with that?
that's fine.
Okay.
Thank you again, and thank you, Senators, for being interested in and supporting higher education in Maryland. I want to begin my responses to the questions by thanking the analysts and also acknowledging that I'm joined here by the system's three incredible HBCU leaders, President Anderson of UMES, President
Dr.
Grohl.
Kerman, could you pull that mic over in front of you,
Yeah,
please?
sorry. Beg your
Thank
pardon.
you.
I was commenting on the colleagues that have joined me, President Bro of Bowie State, President Anderson of UMES, President Jenkins of Coppin State. As well, we have here our leader of UMGC, Dr. Greg Fowler, and our recently arrived leader of Towson University, President Ginsburg. I hope I'm not leaving anybody out. We've been asked to comment on increasing the participation of recent high school graduates in post-secondary education. Just as a snapshot, our system-wide enrollment grew this fall, which continues the COVID rebound. Enrollment is up overall across the system 2.5% over last year. It's at nearly 167,000 students, and enrollment is up 5% among our HBCUs. Contributing to this enrollment growth is more than 15,000 new first-time, full-time students, which is a one-year increase of 4%, and that growth outperforms trends nationwide. Some of our growth is attributable to students coming back, resuming college-going plans post-pandemic, coming back to the notion of getting a higher education. Some of it is attributable to very deliberate outreach, which is as strong as ever. We are in our elementary, middle, and high schools every day, getting to know students. This is a very important initiative on the system schools part. We simply cannot wait for students to come to us as if we're some sort of a centerpiece. And if they get to the point that they want to go to college, and if they do well in school, then maybe we'll let them in. We've got to do it the other way. We've got to reach in and interface with our pre-K to 12 partners and do the outreach that we need to do. And that is what we are doing. These efforts are concentrated in historically underserved communities, and they are targeted to underserved students. It bears noting that the USM is proudly a majority minority system reflecting Maryland's diversity. We're expanding dual enrollment across the system as a way to create that interface with students in pre-K to 12. For example, UBALT dually enrolls students from Baltimore City schools. They have about 700 of them this year. Bowie State and College Park partner with the Prince George's County Schools. Frostburg offers high schoolers credit-bearing courses that aren't available at local community colleges. Dual enrollment doesn't just open college access to high school students, but it puts them on a path to a degree that takes less time and costs less money because they get college credit. And I'll note that strengthening agreements and transfer pathways with our community colleges accomplishes the same thing. Many two-year students are recent high school graduates themselves, and we're proud that transfer students make up nearly 30% of our undergrad enrollment. Question 2 about efforts to increase enrollment of low to moderate income students. The primary way you grow college enrollment for low-income students is to make sure low-income students can afford college. Last year, our universities distributed $100 million in institutional need-based aid. Nearly 90 million of it went to undergraduates, up from 62 million in FY22, 45% increase in 1 year. This increase means that 10,000 more students received need-based aid last year, bringing our system-wide total to 33,000 undergraduates. And we did that without reducing the amount of merit aid that we awarded. We've been focused on students, a very vulnerable group. These are students who just miss Pell eligibility. They're the students who carry the highest loan debt. 3 years ago, we dedicated $20 million to this Pell cutoff group. And then last year, with the support of you and your colleagues, we established a $150 million quasi-endowment whose income should grow our annual need-based aid by $6.4 million. We know that aid improves more than college participation. It improves persistence too. So we've started measuring that. I don't have all the data for you. We will have it soon. But we have so far looked at STEM students, students that are in the STEM majors at UMBC and at UMGC. And here's what we're finding. We are seeing that aid of any kind, in any amount, increases completion among high-need students. I have been asked appropriately to demonstrate whether it makes a difference, whether there's a return on investment. And the data are coming out that way. At UMBC, graduation rates went from 38% to 71% if you give them some aid. At UMGC, 38% to 72%. These preliminary data are demonstrating that if you can help somebody out in college with financial aid, they're going to stick it out and they're going to finish. The only reason we focused on STEM graduates is because people are clamoring for STEM graduates, and the investment pays off. And the biggest bang for our buck, you know how much aid? Was in the range of $4,000 to $5,000 a year. Makes a difference. So we're expanding this study so that in time we can better shape our financial aid practices so that they work for the most students. That isn't the only answer, though. In terms of persistence, we have to support these students with academic and wraparound services. For example, UMES has a very effective summer bridge program to help underserved students transition from high school to college. Our universities have technology-based early warning systems so that we can get students the help they need right away before the academic gap grows too big. And we're taking an all-of-it approach to support, tutoring, success coaches, peer mentoring, writing and math centers, social and emotional supports. But all the support in the world doesn't help if students don't know about it and can't access it. So we just won a $4 million grant from the U.S. Department of Education as a system to train peer mentors system-wide who will help new students, especially underserved students, navigate their first year of college by connecting them with all the expansive resources that are already available on our campus. I've been asked to comment on steps being taken to assist transfer students, to facilitate the transfer process, ensure their academic success. The pipeline from Maryland community colleges to the USM, in my opinion, has never been stronger. We're growing dual admission agreements and targeting support to transfer students. Several of our universities, Coppin, UBall, Towson, UMBC, UMGC, have partnered in the Degrees to Succeed program out of CCBC, a dual admission program in which we provide structured advising to students while they're still earning their associate degree. Coppin has partnered with Baltimore City Community College, allowing their graduates to attend Coppin State University tuition-free for 2 years. The University of Baltimore is using scholarship funds and a significant portion of its federal PBI dollars, that's predominantly Black institutions, to support transfer students. Plus, we're making our general education programs more transfer friendly. College Park and Salisbury have affirmed that if students have an associate degree from a Maryland community college, they'll consider them to have satisfied the gen ed curriculum. So I'm grateful to many of my colleagues at this table whose provosts gather regularly with ours to align our 2- and 4-year courses so that those courses can transfer as direct equivalencies, meaning students get the credits they need without spending additional time or money. And as you know, we continue to implement the new ARTSIS. It's an incredibly complex effort, but we're making key decisions together about design and functionality. And I should mention that students are actually on these design teams because they know better than anybody what's working and not working. In terms of student success, just want to reiterate a point I made here before. Our transfer students, with or without an associate degree, have college completion rates comparable to students who started their education at the USM. And I must say that that's a testament to the incredible quality of Maryland's community colleges. FAFSA, the new FAFSA, and what impact it will have on our institutions and students. Senator, the new FAFSA is a big overhaul. It requires changes for all of us to our policies and procedures, documentation, data sharing. It requires changes to the platforms we use, changes in how and when we communicate with students and family. I think you all know that the new form was released more than 2 months later than usual, and the systems used to process the incoming data aren't yet fully aligned. So it's been a challenge for our universities, not only learning new formulas and systems, but doing all of it on a timeline that's never been so compressed. Our understanding is that our universities won't see FAFSA data until February. That's going to delay the aid offers that we make in many cases. And those delays could put us at a competitive disadvantage if we're up against schools that use other mechanisms for calculating aid. I'm talking about student institutions out of state. And it's not just the timing that's difficult. It's the algorithms that could render some students Pell ineligible when they've received Pell money in the past. Yes, Maryland is projected to add Pell students with the new formula, but some students may actually move off the rolls. The new FAFSA doesn't take into account, for example, whether a family has more than one child in college. And as I said, if our universities can't compensate with additional need-based aid, or they need to spread that aid around to more students, we could see an impact on retention. Commenting on re-enrolling and ensuring successful outcomes for those with some credits, no credential. It's obviously easier and more effective to actually stop students from stopping out in the first place. In other words, the prevention of the problem versus re-engaging them once they do so. So we focus a lot of effort on prevention. We try to find out why enrolled students haven't registered for the next term, whether it's financial need or obligations outside of school, unaddressed mental health issues, and we work to remove whatever obstacle is interfering. I'm a big proponent on behalf of the system for micro grants. I've talked about this in these testimony opportunities before. You know, sometimes a student has to choose between the cost of going to college and paying $400 for rent. They're going to pay the rent. We need to be making money available to help them with the choice, because I think the return on investment ultimately is very clear to us. We've also simplified readmission so that the process itself doesn't deter students. We're getting creative in how we provide students flexibility so that they can come back without going through the whole thing again, starting over. Some of our universities serving a number of non-traditional students, let's say the student that's out in the workplace, got a family, got a couple of kids. We've developed continuous enrollment policies so that students who have stopped out for a few semesters can re-enroll without reapplying. And all of our universities have near completed programs offering students wraparound financial, academic advising, and personal support to lure them back to their degree. UMBC's Finish Line program was started during COVID when courses migrated online, still going strong. 200 plus students have completed their degree through the program. UMBC reached out to them and got them back into the fold. Bowie State's One Step Away program is 20 years old. BSU credits it with upping their graduation rate by 1% each year. Finally, commenting on direct admissions to our university. I think direct admissions can supplement our expansive outreach efforts and could be effective in reaching students who may not be planning to apply to college at all. Our universities are using direct admissions in targeted areas. Several have participated in the Common App direct admissions pilot, but used it in different ways. For instance, Towson and UMES continue to use the pilot, focusing on first-gen and low to moderate income students who meet certain academic criteria. Towson launched its TU for Baltimore direct admissions program last year, partnering with Baltimore City Schools to offer admission and support services to 23 students. All 23 have been retained thus far, and Towson is working on a second cohort of 30 students. Meanwhile,
Dr.
Coppin and
Can I stop you
Frostburg.
just 1 second? I hate to cut you short, but we only have until 2:30 for this briefing, and I want to hear all your colleagues' remarks.
Last paragraph.
Okay,
Coppin and Frostburg piloted direct admission through the Common App, found more cost-effective and targeted ways to do it on their own. Thank you for listening.
thank you. I'd like to steal your notes because there are some good things that you mentioned that people need to hear that we could put in newsletters and stuff. So if you've got some
You're
of that.
most
that we can
welcome to them.
Okay. Okay, next we have Dr. Wilson,
Yes.
Morgan State.
Thank you very much, Chair King. We always appreciate the support from you and the rest of the members of this committee, from the legislature, from Governor Moore for higher education. I am cognizant of the time, and so I will not in any way read the prepared comments that we have submitted to you. I will provide a high-level summary, if you will. So let me start as well by thanking the analysts for a very, very fine job of putting this information before us. Madam Chair and the committee, I can say that I, on behalf of Morgan State University and so many others around this state and around the nation, are so appreciative for this support that the state of Maryland and the legislature in particular is providing to higher education to ensure that we stand tall on the foundation of academic freedom, that we stand tall in recognizing the role of higher education in perfecting and advancing our democracy. In my 14th year as president of Morgan, I could not undertake the body of work that we are undertaking here in any other state, unfortunately, in this period. And I owe that, and we owe that to the support that the legislature is providing to us to be free to carry out the great missions of higher education in the state. I simply had to say that. Morgan State University is the fastest growing university in the state of Maryland. We are just a few students shy of 10,000. We could be 12,000, but we don't have any place to put students. We have seen our enrollment just go through the roof in the last 4 years. We have seen our enrollment increase by 26% over the last few years. This past year, we had a 9% increase in overall enrollment and the third straight year of record freshman enrollment. We attribute that to so many things, but of course, to the support that we're getting from the state, but also to new high demand academic degree programs that we put in place, where students are recognizing that they are high quality, that they are putting them in a position where they can command incomes that will sustain a middle-class lifestyle. Programs like cloud computing, mechatronics engineering, the only such programs in the state, and those programs are growing like wildfire. The students are figuring that out. Also, with this increase, we have had a 40% increase in the number of students attending Morgan from the state of Maryland. And so we are looking at how we can better serve all of the counties in this state. Morgan is located in Baltimore. We are so proud of that. But Morgan is a treasure for the entire state of Maryland, and we are not forgetting that along the way. Just a couple more comments. We also have been the recipient of funding for 6 research centers at Morgan that are unearthing, if you will, some the kind of knowledge-based, evidence-based studies that we feel is placing Morgan in a very unique position as what we will soon be, which is an R1 very high research institution. You heard me say, Madam Chair, I mean, over the last, 7 or 8 years, as we were on this mission to increase the research at Morgan, we are not doing this with all due respect to all of our colleagues in the state. We don't want to be like Johns Hopkins, and President Daniels and I, we joke about that. We're not doing this to be like a flagship College Park. We're doing this to be a unique Morgan, to be an anchor institution in our largest city that is really not running away from the intractable problems and opportunities that we see. And these research centers are unearthing new research and new ways of thinking about this. We have a National Center for the Elimination of Educational Disparities, a National Center for Equitable Artificial Intelligence Machine Learning, a National Center on Microelectronics, a Center on Reduction of Urban Violence, a center, if you will, for urban climate and policy, just to give you a flavor. I was one of the 17 presidents in the nation that President Ted Mitchell at the American Council on Education and the Carnegie classifications reached out to about a year ago, as we have been talking about the unbelievable complexity and all of the metrics that no one knew about that went into how that organization classified every single university in the country. And so President Mitchell asked me and 16 other presidents to meet and basically react to how Carnegie should be thinking about classifications going forward. And so what Carnegie released in November, Maryland was at the table. I was there from day one, and we started with all of the complexity, and it was unanimous amongst a group of 17 presidents that we just needed these 2 data points. With the 2 data points, Morgan will miss in 2025 being an R1 very high research institution, because during COVID, we had a slight drop in doctoral degree production. But I can say to you with a high degree of assurance, we expect in 2027 to be the 3rd public R1 very high research university in the state of Maryland. And so with regard to what you asked me to respond to, you can see that it is all there. I will say, however, in terms of what we have learned at Morgan, and we've learned a lot about not only how you enroll first generation college students, but how do you get them across the finish line? And I tell you, we can spout out all kinds of statistics, but it really comes down to 2 or 3 basic things. And in the vernacular, you have to have the money. I mean, the financial support is critical to keep them persisting. And so we, last year, allocated $34 million in institutional aid to these students. That's the largest percent of institutional aid that any other institution, percent-wise, has allocated for this type of financial support, and we will continue to do that. You also have to have in place support programs. These students, like many other students, they're coming to us with tremendous psychological, mental health challenges, and we can't run away from that. So you got to build that, and you have to build programs around how to do college and how to do it well. And so we can write a dissertation about each of those, but I just wanted you to know that we too are moving forward to do those things as well. With regard to the FAFSA, this is just rolling out horribly, and we have no control over it. And we have to do an unbelievable job at Morgan of explaining to our students and parents that this is not our fault. Because they are thinking, oh, you have not sent us the award letter. And so what's going on here? It's Morgan's fault. But I tell you, the glitches have meant that our students are not getting these award letters on time, and it's putting a lot of pressure on our staff as well. And so finally, I just say a word or two about our efforts to re-enroll students with some college, no degree. I serve on the board of directors of the Lumina Foundation and have been there for the last 4 years. And we had a singular goal, 60 by 25, 60% of Americans with a high quality credential beyond high school by 2025. So we've been looking at these data for a number of years. And there are 40 million people in the United States with some college, no degree, about 800 or so thousand of them in Maryland. So when we came back to the campus, we started talking about what is it that we need to be doing at Morgan to bring back some of those some college no degreeers in our state and nationally. So we established a new college, the College of Interdisciplinary and Continuing Studies, targeting this particular population. We brought forth 18 new degree programs. Our board approved them. It was 8 programs at the baccalaureate level, 5 at the master's level, and 5 at the doctoral level. That college now is moving forward with about 200 or so students enrolled. We just had the first group to graduate this past May. And just to give you an example, we had one graduate who came to Morgan, left in the late 70s, and was 15, 20 credits or so shy of her degree, got married, and had 9 children, and just never ever picked that up again. And then when this program came online, she called and we worked with her. She came, all her grandchildren. I mean, there was not a dry eye in the house. And we are getting so many like her, and then so many others who are in their 20s. We're still, trying to figure it out. So we have a lot of promise for this college, and our goal is to eventually enroll about 2,000 or so students, and this is strictly online as well. And so let me stop there, Madam Chair. I just wanted to give you a flavor for what's going on at the university without reading what we've already submitted to you.
Thank you so much. Dr. Jordan, welcome.
Madam Chair, it's always wonderful to see you. Welcome and hello, committee members. I'm going to not read all the great stuff that's happening at St. Mary's College of
Well,
Maryland.
the problem is we know there's great stuff happening all
Yeah.
along that row. So.
Yeah, so, and I know time is short, but I do, before I respond to the questions in an abbreviated kind of way, I want to express my appreciation for your continued support of the college and really what you do in higher ed in general. As we all acknowledge, your support of the sector is exemplary and should be held as a beacon of how it can be done on a national level. We're very fortunate to be in the state of Maryland. I wouldn't take St. Mary's College of Maryland any place else just because of you guys. Thinking about enrollment in a very big way, enrollment at St. Mary's College has been increasing over the years. I'm proud to say that. And we have increased 12% since 2019. Every year, the number of admitted students increases, and it's attributed to how we're thinking about the curriculum these days. I call it neoliberal arts, where we always talk about broad yet deep, but it's also integrated with professional skills development in the core and in the curriculum, and then just trying to be responsible for how we spend our money. Talking about new programs, the only one I'm going to highlight is our marine science program, which is the only one in the state for undergraduate students. It is our 3rd most popular major in only 2 years, and it is going to be a flagship program that you will all be proud of. It's also important to note that we think about our mission of excellence, access, affordability, and diversity all the time in everything we do. And that since right now, our tuition is the lowest it's been in 11 years because we have held tuition flat for 4 consecutive years. So with respect to the first question, St. Mary's College has a variety of initiatives to get these recent graduates into Secondary education, these include more than 300 recruitment visits to local high schools, community-based organizations, community colleges through the state, and we meet with the students, their parents, the counselors, and transfer counselors. More than 3,200 prospective students have attended these recruitment events in the past year, and our enhanced campus visit offerings have been especially successful, with more than 96% of students who attend our campus indicating afterwards that their interest in the college was either sustained or increased by being there. These efforts are grounded by our commitment to ensuring that prospective students throughout the state are aware of and consider our excellent offerings, especially those who may not currently plan to pursue higher ed. Moreover, with increased competition from out-of-state institutions due to less favorable student demographic trends in other states, we're acutely aware of the importance of providing a high-quality, affordable education for Maryland students in Maryland, and we have more than doubled our marketing going on in the state. In addition to these initiatives for the broader cohort of Maryland's recent high school graduates, we've implemented specific strategic recruitment plans designed for students from traditionally underserved communities. These include the development and expansion of partnerships with organizations such as College Bound Foundation in Baltimore City, College Track, that's a national organization, but we're specifically located in Prince George's County, and national organizations such as Dream.us. The college's Office of Admission also sponsors regular bus trips to campus for students from low-income areas to minimize transportation barriers, and our newly reorganized Office of Equity Programs manages 3 distinct programs, Sousa Brent, Lander Scholars, and Sum Primus, to recruit, retain, and graduate diverse cohorts. Regarding your question on ensuring the success of our student transfer population, as we continue to implement requirements associated with the Transfer with Success Act, the college has recently reorganized all transfer student services into one unit. This unit is led by a dedicated Director of Transfer, Recruitment, Admission, and Services, who oversees all of the college's efforts to offer a seamless experience from the moment a prospective student expresses their interest in St. Mary's College to the day they arrive on campus for orientation through the day they graduate. During the pre-enrollment process, our Office of Student Success Services and Academic Affairs divisions are brought together to not just advise transfer students through credit evaluation, but also to determine the student's individual plan to graduation, and we ensure that they stick to that plan. Moving on to direct admission, as a small institution by design, St. Mary's College seeks to actively recruit and enroll students who are both academically talented and well prepared to contribute to our diverse community of citizen scholars. With a relatively small entering class average of 450 students, it is paramount that our admission process considers an applicant's academic achievements as well as their personal strengths and interests. Further, we must carefully plan and manage our resources to best provide for our student body. If the college's existing ability to shape admission decisions is inhibited, it could result in class sizes which rapidly exceed our available student housing, financial aid, academic support, and classroom space capacity. We understand that several states have implemented or begun discussing direct admission. However, it is also our understanding that these policies vary widely and the requirements on students are typically more inclusive than just their secondary class rank. We're committed to offering our premier liberal arts education that is both affordable and accessible to a broad spectrum of students. We look forward to continued discussion to help to define and refine the role of direct admissions in Maryland. In regards to impacts for updated FAFSA, you've heard it all. It's a mess. It puts us at a disadvantage, and we hope that somebody fixes it soon. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. So finally, with regard to our efforts to re-enroll and ensure successful outcomes for students with some college but no credential, each year our Office of Admissions specifically identifies and contacts students who have previously withdrawn from the college and not enrolled or completed their degree at another institution. This contact is primarily intended to gauge the student's interest in and pathway for potentially re-enrolling. On average, we contact 150 students each year, and roughly 30 students return from leave or withdrawal. Then, to best support the students who have indicated interest in enrolling, a bunch of offices, admissions, student support, academic affairs, all work jointly to get the student to campus and determine their ability to re-enroll and pay for it. That's my high level. I am done. I'm happy to answer any questions that might
Great
come up
job.
later. Thank you so much.
Okay, Dr. Brad Phillips.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the committee. Just want to start by thanking you all so much for your continued support in past years for community colleges in the state of Maryland. And really do want to emphasize that I think community colleges are one of the greatest assets and the tools that you have as a state to help people on the margins that are struggling, come from underrepresented communities, to get the next level up, to get some type of quality of life and join the middle class. So I too want to thank the analyst for their presentation, and I think that there's some issues there that I would like to comment on. One of the things that was drawn up in the analysis that the CADE funding formula was not calculated correctly, which resulted in a $19.8 million difference. Prior to this, the BRFA would have had the reduction in CADE funding. It would be the fourth largest cut to the history of the CADE funding formula. Factoring in this additional $19.8 million, it would be the second largest cut in the history of the CADE funding formula. That's a problem. For some of our colleges, it's double-digit decreases in their operating budget. And for one, it's as much as 21% cut for how going forward. That particular institution that's being cut 21% actually has an enrollment increase of 20% this fall, causing great problems looking forward for how they're planning to balance their budget. I think there's something there that does not quite reflect the spirit in which the calculation has been made in the past. I think it's a separate issue that may need to be looked at a little bit further, and perhaps legislation to make sure there's clarity on how to count those FTEs at our public four-year institutions. But the biggest concern we have is the rebasing of the CADE funding formula. We're just recovering from the last BRFA reduction that we had. That happened with the fiscal 2010 operating budget. And it took all the way up until 2023 to regain the time that we've lost and get full funding back to 29% per FTE. During that time, we've actually been able to expand in a number of areas. Dual enrollment has increased exponentially on our community colleges thanks to the blueprint, yet we're still only reimbursed 75% of the cost of tuition for those courses. And yet on some of our campuses, it's approaching 35% of our enrollment. So a CADE reduction now would only hamper sort of the request that's being made. We're doing, like I said, our enrollment overall is up 8.3% this fall, which means that this type of reduction would actually result in less dollars for more students overall. The main concern we have is that rebasing the CADE formula is kind of a disconnect in general from all of the things that you've asked us to accomplish through the years and all the progress that we have made. 29 cents for every dollar that's given to the public four-year institutions is what you all have established as a policy goal. That in itself assures quality and affordability for our students, but relinking that down and reducing the obligation makes it much harder for our institutions to continue the great strides that they have without having to look at affordability in a different way. And that, Madam Chair, members of the committee, is going to change a lot of the responses that I'm able to give to the questions that you asked in this analysis, putting the brakes on a lot of the opportunities that we've been able to allow students with full CADE funding. So with that, you've asked me 4 questions, and I'll be very quick in my responses because you've heard most of those already. But as far as transfer goes, like the analysis said, we're the 3rd highest transfer out rate in the nation. And we've really tried to focus on a transfer system that's student-centered. We've worked with our four-year institutions to figure out what's in the best interest of students when they want to transfer and to help that process work. The main goal we continue to strive towards is making sure that the credits that they earn at the community colleges transfer seamlessly. Chancellor Perman has already mentioned some of the work that our intersegmental chief academic officers are doing to make certain there's an alignment in course equivalencies so that students can transfer seamlessly, and the enhanced ARCIS updates that are being made as well. This work continues. We would love to see ultimately how our students are actually being transferred once they have gone to a four-year institution, but I know that's in the works, and it's a part of the Transfer with Success Act legislation that passed a number of years ago. The second question, direct admissions. We will take 100% of every student. That's the end of that. We want your students. It's how we'd like to work, so that's an easy answer. The second question is about the FAFSA or the Pell eligibility. Everything that's already been said has been said. I will just add one extra additional thing. We have a number of students that access community colleges for an array of credentials beyond an associate's degree. They are still required in some capacity to file a FAFSA in order to see whether or not they're eligible for state financial assistance. And for our continuing education non-credit students seeking licensures and certifications, this is an additional barrier that actually creates challenges for them to receive institutional aid or financial aid through the state. We'd like to see that barrier gone. They don't get any benefit for filing out the FAFSA, and it's a delay in us being able to help them. We'd like to be able to determine eligibility in a different way on our own campus. And fourth, the question about near completers. Again, this all boils down to what we're able to accomplish within the resources that we have to help students complete. And having a reduction of our CADE funding formula will hamper this substantially. But we are still striving to help students that are near completers. We set up, I would essentially call them war rooms to help this particular population. And we've benefited from a number of One Step Away grants to help students come back and complete. But again, it's all based on making certain that we can have the support services to help this student population complete. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Matt. I saved the best till last.
Yeah. Oh,
Go ahead.
thank you very much, Madam Chair. Chair King, members of the subcommittee, I'm Matt Power, President of the Maryland Independent College University Association. I accept the silent challenge you've given me to wrap this up, and I will certainly do my best. I would really like to thank the Department of Legislative Services for comprehensive and extremely helpful analysis from our perspective. For 50 years, the state of Maryland has supported a dual system of higher education that is the envy of the entire country. The Selinger program's creation was a recognition that no one segment of higher education can possibly offer the breadth of programming and choice desired by Marylanders. 9 governors and 14 general assemblies have recognized that providing a modest % of funding to independent institutions tied to the funding levels at USM provides Maryland high school graduates increased affordability, programming, and choice. Selinger was so successful, in fact, that the CADE formula was modeled after it. As the analysis highlights, the miscalculations in the formula in combination with the BRFA. As a result, every institution in the state doesn't go it alone by hounding the administration and every single legislator to cut the funding of another institution in order to give it to them, because we all recognize the value that recent high school graduates receive when they have multiple affordable choices to pursue the higher education of their choice and their dreams. As a result of the Selinger program, we have dramatically increased access for low-income students and increased diversity on our campuses, because 85% of Selinger is used for financial aid for Maryland residents. Our student body looks nearly identical to USM. 41% students of color, 30% underrepresented minorities, 25% Pell recipients, and 24% first-time undergraduates. This is because Selinger helps promote access and affordability. We are also significant contributors to the state's policy goals. Its 55% completion goal, and those are the state plan for higher education. We help the state meet its workforce goals. Last year, MICUA produced the most education degrees at or above the baccalaureate level in Maryland. The state needs our partnership to meet the very ambitious goals of the blueprint. The parties at this table are here at a time when recent high school graduates have more affordable access and choice to high quality higher education than at any other time in the history of Maryland. No single one of our segments can do it alone. Maryland has always recognized that through the Selinger and Cade formula. MICUA recognizes the state's budget realities and accepts that the committee needs to make reductions. Our hope is that we can work with all of you to ensure that the public good we provide and the public goals we support are recognized, and that the reduction is on par with the other segments of higher education that contribute to the system of higher education we've decided to produce in Maryland for 50 years. We're not asking for full funding, but we are asking for fair funding. With that and the timing, I strongly encourage you to review our testimony. We provided a number of our infographics to synthesize it and our main points because we know that your time is extremely valuable. We're very proud of the success of our members and hope you will read our testimony. And we hope to work with all of you over the next 70+ days to come to fair and equitable conclusions. With that, I will end my testimony and thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
Thank you so much. You know, when the budget came out last week, I think all of us, our hearts kind of fell as we read all these different items that have been cut. And I think I can say for this subcommittee, for my whole committee, you know, we will be finding any possible way we can to restore whatever we can. Just work with us and, you know, we'll do the best we can.
Greatly appreciate it. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Okay. I have some other people that are signed up. Is there anyone else that's still here that wants to? Yes. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry, Senator Bailey.
If I could just ask, all of you, but mainly Dr. Phillips, I wanted to just ask a quick question about dual enrollment. You know, now we're requiring the local counties, the local government to pay for the price of percentage of the community college. And we're doing that even if the student attends the school, the college class in the public high school, taught by a public school teacher, and the paperwork being done by the public school administrators. And they send it to the community college. And as a result of that and the bills, I've been in contact with several of the counties where they've said, well, unless they're going to actually attend community college at the community college, that these programs are being phased out and it's effective next year. And I just, I see that jeopardy, and it concerns me because I see the benefit that our community college provide and these dual enrollment classes do provide, but money is always the driver. And I'm just curious and interested in your thoughts as the potential to reduce this and what you think, what would that impact have on your community colleges?
Well, a lot of growth that we have seen with the dual enrollment programs has been extraordinarily successful for the particular students in general. They're some of the strongest students that are able to continue to persist and graduate and have some of our highest success rates in graduating. Reducing that obligation or making it harder would just disadvantage students primarily, but it will also hurt their progress and end up making them cost more. And the relationship that we have with our school systems now, you know, we waive 25% of the cost in tuition. It's growing. We've been able to do that to some extent because of achieving our funding tie of 29%. With that in jeopardy, it's even more difficult to think how we could actually pull off sort of the success story that we've had with dual enrollment going forward.
I appreciate your concern, and I hope we can get this worked out. But I do know from some of the rural counties that, you know, unless there's some, you know, influx of money, it's in jeopardy right now. So thank you very much.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, we still had some other people that were signed up to testify. I have Elias Lachina, Kara Turner, Danielle Bays, not here, Anthony Reiner, and Brandon Engel. Okay, thank you all very much. I'm sure we'll be hearing from you again. Lots.
Oh, by that? Well, I just long enough. Oh, right, okay. We need to.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Education, Business, and Administration Subcommittee. We have a briefing this afternoon on the Montgomery County Child Care Resource Center, Growing Opportunities for Gamely Child Care Program. And we have with us Laura Wheeldryer, the Executive Director of the Maryland Family Network. You want to come up to the table? Lacey Eidman, Director of the Maryland Child Care Resource Network, and Karen Eisenhuth, Assistant Director of the Maryland Child Care Resource Network. Who wants to go first here?
I'll start us off.
Okay.
Okay. Madam Chair, thank you so much for having us today. For any of you I don't know, I'm Laura Wheeldryer, Executive Director of Maryland Family Network, and we are very excited to talk to you today about growing opportunities for family childcare, which did start in Montgomery County at their Child Care Resource Center. And we're going to talk to you today about how we have expanded it and replicated it around the state. We are very excited and passionate about this work, so we are here to lift your spirits on a rainy afternoon. I want to give a special thanks to Senator King, of course, for having us here today, but also for being a champion and a leader in the early childhood space, particularly for childcare. And really, without you, we literally would not be sitting here today, because it was your leadership on the bill several years ago, along with Delegate Jared Solomon, that lifted up this program and put some state funds into the replication and expansion of Go FCC, as we affectionately call it. So I am joined by two of my staff from Maryland Family Network today, who are actually running this work with our CCRCs. And so I'm going to hand it over to Lacey.
Good afternoon. Thank you again for having us. This is beyond exciting to get to highlight the work we're doing. So I'm Lacey Eidman. I'm the director of our Maryland Child Care Resource Network, and joining me is
Karen Eisenhuth, and I'm the assistant director of the Child Care Resource Network. Thanks for having us.
So just to make sure we've got some groundwork and kind of highlight why we're here. The Maryland Family Network is the state coordinating entity of the Maryland Child Care Resource Network, with funding from the State Department of Education. And as the SCE, we both issue and monitor contracts to agencies who operate what we call the CCRCs, or the Child Care Resource Centers. Our role as the SCE, however, is not just the fiscal and monitoring of these grants, but also programmatic development and coordination. This is a system of agencies operating throughout the entire state. They are the hubs for our child care communities, providing coaching services, professional development and training, access to materials and resources, and supports that range from completing paperwork for grants to building their educator skills. They also act as connectors, whether that is with their local school system, the Judy centers, or ensuring that they can access the infant and early childhood mental health consultation program. They also provide connections to local supports and services, additional resources, and opportunities that will benefit not only the child care programs, but also the children and families they serve. They also have a service where they connect families to find high-quality licensed care. So just a brief history of Go FCC to kind of navigate how we got to this point. In 2015, the Montgomery County Child Care Support Services, a department of local government operating the Child Care Resource Center, launched a program called Growing Opportunities in Family Childcare, or Go FCC. This was in response to a rapidly declining number of family childcare programs, not only in Maryland, but it was a national alarming trend. During the initial years of implementation, the program garnered attention of childcare advocates statewide due to its notable success in supporting the opening of new family childcare programs. And during the 2021 General Assembly, as Laura mentioned, Senator King and Delegate Solomon introduced, championed, and received support to pass House Bill 944 and Senate Bill 711. This established the support and funding to launch a pilot to replicate this in 3 additional jurisdictions. We were then able to partner with MSDE to coordinate this grant opportunity and leverage additional funds. This resulted in 3 planning grants so that agencies could explore what this would look like. And ultimately 5 grants were issued for implementation from September of 2022 to August of 2024. Our role now is coordinating these programs, ensuring there's cohesion and programmatic alignment, as well as consistent data collection and analysis, and ensuring that each agency has the autonomy to develop a program which is aligned to the needs of their unique jurisdictions. So to highlight the 5 agencies who are currently doing this work, and with your permission, Senator King, I'd like to note that our colleagues are here. Can I welcome them? Thank you. So with us today, we have the Baltimore City Child Care Resource Center at the Family Tree, serving Baltimore City. We have staff from Child Resource Connect, which serves Prince George's and Anne Arundel counties. We also are currently working with Child Care Choices at the Mental Health Association. They were not able to send anyone, but they serve what we identify as the 5 Western counties: Allegheny, Garrett, Washington, Frederick, and Carroll. We are also working with Abilities Network Project Act, serving Baltimore, Harford, and Cecil counties, and the Eastern Shore Child Care Resource Center at Salisbury University, which serves all 8 of the Eastern Shore counties, which I will happily name, but I'm sure you all know that. So GoFCC is a comprehensive program that has been designed and implemented to provide services across every aspect of a family child care program. For those interested in entering the field, there's a startup and licensing pathway, which provides an expedited access to licensure, expanding the number of child care slots available. For those who are newly licensed or those who have been in operation, there is a business sustainability pathway, which acknowledges that family child care needs an emphasis on small business operations. It is not enough for us to open new programs. We have to ensure they have the skills necessary to successfully sustain their business operations, which is not only good for them, but also supports children remaining in consistent caregiving environments. And finally, GoFCC intersects with a pathway of targeted coaching and training that ensures we are opening quality programs, aligning them into Maryland Excels, the Child Care Scholarship Program, the Maryland Child Care Credential, and ultimately national accreditation. What each of these pathways does is create an intentional and intensive system of supports, which acknowledges that family childcare is both high-quality childcare environments and a small business. This ensures that the individuals have access to the resources and supports they need to operate and thrive within Maryland. Another aspect of this program, which is a very intentional part of our design, is the utilization of a community cohort model. Family childcare is an extremely isolated profession. They don't have coworkers in other classrooms they can connect with, and they only have each other in the larger scheme of things. The GoFCC participants are part of a community of like-minded individuals who are not only in the same business, but are engaged in the same programmatic pursuits to enhance the quality of care they are providing and building a sustainable business model. This networking has created opportunities not only for the providers as professionals, but for the families in their communities. We've heard anecdotally of providers marketing one another to families seeking care when their own program has been filled to capacity with a wait list. So the first pathway, to just dig into some of the specifics, is this startup and licensure. And this is the one that really is addressing the alarming decrease in family childcare. The intention is that our programs are targeting childcare deserts within the communities, utilizing data to determine if there are enough slots in any particular community for the children that live there. What we've learned throughout the planning and implementation process is that these childcare deserts are frequently in underserved communities. So while these programs not only provide childcare to the children and families, we're also increasing employment opportunities. Some components worth highlighting. There is an expedited pathway. We've learned over the past several years, as well as with our partners from Montgomery County, that the typical process can take 12 months to obtain a license on average. We are experiencing with our graduates thus far that the average has been cut in half to about 6 months, with some achieving their licensure slightly faster and some slightly longer. The faster process is not only reducing the stress on the individual seeking the license, reducing the likelihood that they'll drop out, but is also resulting in more childcare slots faster.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
For people that are waiting a year, is that because they have to continue the education? They have to fill out,
Why does it take
qualifications?
Okay. What we sort of know is that the process for some is education. They need to finish the training. Sometimes it's navigating local zoning and licensing, like outside of the childcare aspect. Sometimes it's that they're still employed elsewhere, and this is just something they're doing on the side. So the 12 months really varies from person to person, we've seen.
Yeah, I've had people call me complaining because they didn't get there as fast as they wanted to, but after I've talked to them a while, they're doing a lot of other things and they're not focusing on this maybe every 2 or 3 or 4 weeks. And so thus it drags on for them longer.
Exactly. And our cohort kind of keeps them actively engaged, focused, and the coaches are checking in very regularly, so nobody gets to kind of fall by the wayside. So that speaks to the intensive coaching that they're getting. So these participants have these dedicated coordinators and coaches who are helping them through this whole process, from the Office of Child Care orientation, helping them understand regulations, helping them with the paperwork, even helping them select developmentally appropriate materials and setting up their environments. One of the challenges that we identified during the planning grants phase was that the forms required to obtain this license can be confusing if you're not familiar with administrative paperwork. The coaches have become extremely knowledgeable about these forms and are able to sit down and not only help them navigate the current forms to obtain a license, but are building skills for them to navigate the Maryland Excels, Child Care Scholarship, Maryland Credential, all of the other forms they will run into once they enter the early childhood field. Our coaches have become extremely knowledgeable about their own jurisdictions, knowing who to call with zoning questions, how to navigate the fire marshal inspections, what someone has to do if their community is governed by an HOA, and even have become well-versed in well and septic systems.
You know, I could run my own business doing that myself.
There you go. So by having someone positioned who's familiar, who's keeping them on track, this is why we're seeing the time cut down. They have that extra support that's needed. They have a partner. Another hallmark of this is that there is a reduction in the initial cost. All of these services are provided for free. All of the training, all of the coaching. They have created collaborations with various companies for materials. Even some are providing the 18 hours required in the first year of licensure for free so that they can ensure that that first year training is completed. One of the other challenges we identified early on was not only access to, but knowledge and skills around the use of technology. So hard work from Karen, as well as our coaches, has resulted in the provision of laptops and portable scanners to every graduate to support their business, as well as a one-year subscription to child care management software, which is a full service financial accounting, budgeting, marketing, even program administration tools, as well as a one-year membership to the NAFCC, or the National Association of Family Child Care, to support their growth. So we are also trying to actively address the gap in knowledge skills that we see in this field. Lastly, they also receive a 4-module business foundations training, and these are the bare bones basics of operating a business, like opening a business banking account. I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that the strong partnerships that have been developed as a result of this, especially with MSDE's licensing branch and the regional offices, has been incredible. Even when they had experienced significant vacancies, they have worked very closely with our CCRC coaches and have worked hard to ensure that our GoFCC participants are not getting stuck in the process. So just some data slides, and you have these, but the first is showing the total spread at the moment from January of 23 to January of 24, the first kind of full year of implementation. We've had 319 total participants. That is total number of people that have entered this process. 88 of them have received their license, graduates, as we say, and have opened 630 slots. 36 are in the process of waiting for licensing's decision. So they've submitted everything. They're totally done. They're just waiting for that final decision. And 170 are somewhere in progress. That could be training, that could be completing paperwork, that could be setting up their house. But we have 170 essentially queued up. And then the next two slides just show you that breakdown by county, brings some numbers so you can see your individual jurisdictions that are operated under the 5 grants. And you can see where we get to the total number that are in operation. And then, because as much as we would have loved to have had them here today, we want to highlight what our graduates of the licensing process have actually said themselves about this program. We pulled 3, although we had dozens to pick from, of just how remarkable this has been, sharing their experience. Wonderful program. I hope it stays. Would recommend it to anyone interested. And a lot of the feedback we get is in that vein. If they couldn't have done it without their incredible coaches.
So tell me one thing, numbers. How many daycare, childcare providers have you done in 6 months?
We pulled it for a 12 months.
12
so I'd
months,
have
okay.
to go.
Well, how,
So 88.
Yeah, 12 months, we opened 88, but
Okay.
most of those have been more recently, just from the launch point. So I could dig deeper.
no.
Okay.
I just wanted to have a general idea of how many you were talking
Yeah.
about. And how many more do you think we need?
Millions? Is that a valid
Yeah,
answer?
I'll bet.
Probably not millions, but it depends geographically. If you look at childcare since the pandemic,
Mhm.
in terms of total number of slots in the state, we're back to, last time I looked, we're back to basically 2019 levels. So that's good news, right? Everybody was worried we were going to lose all these slots. However, if you look a little bit under the hood of those numbers, we did lose family childcare. So those
Yeah.
slots, the kind of net even of slots is really through center expansion and new center licenses. So why does that matter? It matters because there are huge swaths of the state that are primarily served by family childcare. Any place that is rural just doesn't have the critical mass of population to make a center model work and viable financially.
Right.
So Western Maryland, Eastern Shore, and I'm sorry that the folks from the Eastern Shore CCRC aren't here today because they will tell you this program has been huge on the
Oh, I'll bet.
Eastern Shore.
I'll bet.
And interestingly, just to connect two dots for you, Senator King, childcare scholarship has also seen tremendous increases on the Eastern Shore. So I think this is probably just a long overdue recognition of how challenging the childcare environment in rural Maryland has been.
Right. I did tour several childcare centers before session started. And the one thing I wanted to ask you about is they talked about the fact that they allow kids to enroll in the childcare without having been given the okay on a scholarship. And I'm wondering if that's a good idea, because then if it doesn't happen fast, if you go 2 months and you haven't been approved, and then you get a notice that you're not approved, and then they have to come up with the money to pay for that, it's a problem.
Right, the parent doesn't have to, I mean, there's several things going on in your question.
Yeah.
One is that providers have a very soft spot for families who show up and say they need
They wouldn't be in business
childcare.
if they weren't.
Exactly.
Yes.
So they don't want to turn families away. I do think that right now, though, because of the legislation from last year and presumptive eligibility taking effect on July 1st, that it should not be a long waiting time between the application and
Okay.
approval.
Okay.
I'm kind of looking behind me because Dr. Cook probably has some things to say about this. It is probably not a good idea, and I think it is a widespread practice.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. So we're gonna shift gears a little bit and talk about the business sustainability pathway. As I
I
said,
figure we have maybe 10 minutes.
I got you. I could talk
Okay.
faster.
No, that's okay.
No, this is good though. So the business sustainability is critically important because it is not enough for us to open them. They've got to stay open. We need kids to stay in consistent care. So in the early months of the pandemic, as Laura started to note, Maryland, like most states, saw a rapid closure, especially in family childcare businesses, which was just accelerating this issue. When people throughout the country started analyzing what was causing this beyond the obvious challenges of a pandemic, it was uncovered that family childcare providers were not prepared to be a small business, and they were operating on razor-thin margins. In response to this, MFN, CCRCs, national agencies pivoted to identify how to support those remaining in business, stem the flow of closures, and build a system that would prevent this from happening again. As a result of an intentional and thoughtful programmatic development, the business sustainability pathway of GoFCC was launched in 2021. Maryland is currently operating one of the largest and most comprehensive pathways of business sustainability specifically for family childcare programs, and we are working with partners at national agencies like Opportunities Exchange, All Our Kin, and Homegrown. While the path has several goals focused on increasing their revenue, reducing expenses, increasing or expanding their enrollment, and implementing business practices, all of which to mitigate risk and support sustainability. And we do this through intensive professional development, which is a minimum of 35 hours of the All Our Kin Family Childcare Business Training Series, which covers everything from small business ownership to contracts, marketing, risk management, budgets, and tax prep. They also get intensive individual and small group coaching with regular interagency group sessions focused on the skill implementation, but also additional areas like retirement planning and shared services. We are helping them ensure that they have the knowledge and skills to build a small business that is successful and sustainable in a real and meaningful way for them. The unique outcome of this pathway is the change in mindset where these individuals see themselves as business owners and also educators and caregivers. This is also where we really see the big impact of a community learning cohort model, because we've brought together a diverse group of individuals and they're able to learn not only from their coaches, but from each other. The real world connection to another small business owner educator has ensured that we have short-term gains and long-term professional networking. So to highlight some data from our graduates and our current cohorts, we have 100 graduates of the business sustainability pathway, 99 of which are still open. And I do want to note the 100th moved to North Carolina. So this was not anything to do with anything else. 76% reported increased revenue. 75% have reached enrollment capacity. 54% are paying themselves what they identify as a living wage. And 68%, because of how they have managed to reduce expenses, have been able to turn around and reinvest in their business. Our current cohort, we have 39 enrolled, and within the last 3 months, they have already indicated to us a 11% increase in enrollment, and 94% are already saying they feel better about their business skills. And from their words specifically, having access to a dedicated small business coach has been an invaluable resource. I hope more providers can benefit from this. Everyone should have the opportunity. And I think the program has changed the way I manage my family childcare and made me feel more confident and not isolated. They do all the work for us when they speak so well. The final pathway is the quality improvement. And this is that intersection of, yes, you're open. Yes, you now have a sustainable business model, but also we want to make sure it is a quality program that is operating. And there is an intersection here with the other aspect of a childcare resource center and the coaching and professional development that they provide there. So depending on where a program is in their operations, they then receive this kind of internal handoff to a quality coach who is now going to help them navigate Maryland Excels, the credential, the CDA, accreditation, possibly going back to school, depending on where they are and contemplating the blueprint and the public pre-K expansion. And all of this is possible because the CCRC is a hub for all of these services under one roof, and we have the coaches available to support them. It also ensures there's no stagnation. They're already moving forward. They've come out of a very intense 6 months of opening their business, and we immediately put them on the pathway to achieving those quality goals. One of the cool things that Karen did is crosswalked the GoFCC work against Maryland Excels and the National Accreditation for Family Childcare, which helps them see how much work they've already done, which makes all of it feel more attainable. It's not a massive hill. They're already 3/4 of the way up the hill sometimes. A notable outcome of the crosswalk was that with the Maryland Excels branch chief, we were able to navigate, and pathway graduates can achieve the Quality Business Practices Additional Achievement Badge within that program. There's a nice letter and certificate that they're able to navigate through. So some data about our intersections here. The folks who came through the startup pathway, so the ones who have achieved their license, 35 of them are already registered in Maryland Excels and are actively working towards a published rating. 24 have already reached that level 1, and 3 are already at level 3, which is phenomenal. Those who came out of the business pathway, those graduates, 46% increased their Maryland Excels rating while they were in their cohort. 62% achieved a higher Maryland credential level. And our current cohort, again, only 3 months in, 18% have already achieved a higher Maryland Excels rating, and 36% have already achieved a higher Maryland credential rating. So it is a fully comprehensive program. We have identified, worked towards, and ensured that these family childcare providers, whether they are somewhere in the process of licensure or have already entered the field, have got somebody to sit with them and ensure that they can be high quality and sustainable.
And in recognition of the importance of analysis of programs such as this and acknowledging that legislation required such a study, Maryland Family Network has engaged with the National Research Organization Child Trends to conduct an independent research review of the GoFCC program. This will provide an analysis of the short, mid, and long-term impact of this program, while also providing insights and recommendation on the sustainability of each pathway within the program. The first phase of this work will be completed this February, and we will be able to share a memo with you, which contains a descriptive analysis of program data. from the startup side and business sustainability pathways, a program scan of Maryland initiatives that support family childcare, noting any gaps or any alignment in services, and also recommendation for additional data collection. What we would love to ask of you this afternoon, or after you've had some time to digest the information shared today, is to let us know if there's any particular data needs or program analysis opportunities that you feel would support you in understanding the benefits of this program. Thank you.
Any questions or comments? I'd just like to thank you all for putting that all together and coming to see us today. I think it helps.
Thanks for having
Thanks
us.
for having us.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
You know, the budget, I'm telling everybody this, the budget is really tight that it came
Yeah.
over from the governor, and just understand that we will do absolutely as much as we can. And, you know, he knows that this kind of thing is my priority. So we'll just see what we can do.
We appreciate that so much.
Okay.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
He had a meeting with your Barnes, apologizes. I will.